Math 130 students, we are going to pick up on page 3, section 5.2. We are going to be multiplying and dividing rational expressions. So for the first example, it says to multiply. So what we want to do is really just factor as much as possible. So I'm going to concentrate on this fraction first. So remember, whenever I try to factor, one of the first steps is always going to be the greatest common factor. So here, the greatest common factor is going to be a 3. So I'm left with a y minus a 2. Down at the bottom, I have my 6 and my y. And actually, let's just make this color coordinated so that it's y minus 2, and then you have your 6 times your y. Now, I am going to be multiplying this second fraction. So with the second fraction, you can definitely do the AC method. Or you can do the guess and check. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and do my guess and check for my numerator. I know that y times y is y squared. If I have 2, the only way to multiply two numbers to get 2 is 2 times 1. And if they're both added, then it adds up to 3. And don't forget you have a difference of squares down your denominator. So that's going to be a y plus 2 and a y minus a 2. And because it's multiplication, everything just gets multiplied together. So you have a 3, a y minus a 2, a y plus 2, and a y plus 1. Down at the bottom, you have a 6, a y plus 2, and a y minus 2. So then from here, I'm on step number 3, which is reduce the ratios of the common factors. So I see a y minus 2 that can cancel out. I can also see a y plus 2 that can cancel out. And if I'm just looking at my numbers 3 and 6, I can divide by 3. And so I'm going to highlight everything that kind of survived. And I'm going to make sure not to lose that. So up in my numerator, I have a 1 times a y plus 1 over my 2y. So that ends up becoming my final answer, which is the same as my y plus 1 over my 2y. So we are going to think about that second problem the same way. So we are just going to focus on one fraction at a time. So here I can do my factoring. So I'm going to go ahead and factor my numerator. P times p gives me p squared. 4 times 4 gives me 16. And if they're both added, it adds up to 8. I have my GCF of 10, so I have a p plus 1 in my denominator. Now I'm going to look at that second fraction. My numerator has a GCF of 2, so I'm left with a p plus 3. And down at the bottom, if I do my guess and check, well, I know that 3 times 4 multiplies together to give me 12. And it also adds together to give me 7. So now everything's as factored as possible. And remember, in multiplication, order doesn't matter. So I have a 2 times a p plus 3 times p plus 4 times a p plus 4. I'm just rewriting it. Down the bottom, I have a 10. I have a p plus 3, a p plus 4, and I also have a p plus 1. So now from here, I start canceling out common factors. So the p plus 3 and the p plus 4s, and the 2 and the 10 can reduce to a 1/5. So I end up getting my answer as a 1 times a p plus 4 over my 5 p plus 1, or better yet, p plus 4 over 5 p plus 1 as my final answer. So it really is just a lot of factoring and then canceling out. Division is very, very similar. The only thing with division is that you have to change it into multiplication. So it's just one added step. So it says copy the first fraction. So, okay, I'm going to copy that first fraction. So here is my first fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that down so that I have an 8t to the third plus 27. And I'm going to rewrite this in standard form so that I have a negative 4t squared plus 9. Then it says to change the division into multiplication. So now I'm going to change that to multiplication. And the way I'm able to do that is if I flip the second fraction. So now this is going to be 2t squared minus t minus 3 over 4t squared minus 6t plus 9. Now that I'm here, the last step is just to multiply as if you were multiplying. So, okay, so now it just comes down to, I just need to factor this. So in that first fraction, I have a degree 3. So that tells me I'm going to use my cubes. So that's going to be a 2t plus 3, 4t squared minus 6t plus 9. And if I have a negative 4t squared plus 9, then I'm going to factor a negative 1. So I can get a 4t squared minus 9. Well, I know this can be 2t plus 3 and 2t minus 3 because of my difference of squares. And you can think of that as that being my scratch work, okay? So if possible, always have your scratch work over to the side if you need it. Now, if I'm going to be dealing with that blue fraction, then let's see. I have 2t minus t minus 3 and 4t squared minus 6t plus 9. So I'm going to go ahead and factor. That is prime. I can't factor that any further. And up in my numerator, I do think I can factor that. Let's see. I'm going to do my guess and check. So 2t times t. It looks like I would have a 3 and a 1. So to have 2t squared positive 2t minus 3t. There we go. And let's see. If I were, that's what I'm going to guess. So if I were to FOIL that out, it definitely factors nicely. So now I can either rewrite it or I can see from here things I can start canceling. So this can cancel with this. This can cancel with this. This can cancel with this. So what stayed is that t plus 1 and that negative 1. Everything else canceled out. So this can just be negative 1 t plus 1. Okay. All right, so that's going to be my first example. Now, with my second example, again, I'm just going to copy down my first fraction so that I have an x squared plus x over 5x cubed minus x squared. I'm going to change the division into multiplication, and then I'm going to flip the second fraction. So that I have a 25x squared minus 1 over 10x squared plus 12x plus a 2. So now I'm going to factor my first fraction as much as possible. So it looks like I have a GCF of x, so I have an x plus 1. My denominator, I have an x squared, so I'm with the 5x minus a 1. And it's being multiplied by that second fraction. I have a difference of squares, so 5x plus 1 and 5x minus 1. And I also see in my denominator that if I were to have, I'm going to do this over to the side, 10x squared plus 12x plus 2, that I have a GCF of 2 that I have to deal with first. So I'll be left with the 5x squared plus 6x plus 1. So if I were to factor that out even further, either using the AC method or guess and check, I would have 5x times x, and that would give me 5x squared plus 6x plus 1. So that works out perfectly. So 2 times my 5x plus 1 times my x plus 1. So now I can start canceling things out. So I have 5x minus 1 that cancels out. I have a 5x plus 1 that cancels out. And I also have an x plus 1 that cancels out. So I'm left with an x divided by an x squared times 2. And here I can simplify this further. I can think of this as an x to the 1. So when it cancels, I have an x on the bottom, and I also have a 2 on the bottom. So since everything canceled in the numerator, it defaults to be a 1. And really, I'm going to rewrite it so it's 1 over my 2x for my final answer. Okay. So really, with this section, you really want to be comfortable with factoring. That's going to be the key here from here on out, really in this chapter and in the remaining chapters, is you really have to get comfortable with factoring. Okay, well, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me or the Math Success Center or our embedded tutor. Thank you.